This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. This is the podcast which brings you reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema and instead went straight to DVD, Blu-ray, or streaming media. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me tonight is Richard Hawes.
Hello, everybody.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello, everyone.
In this week's show, we've got three major reviews for you. They are Two Heads Creek, Bulletproof, and 9/11. Our short shot this week is Snake Eyes, and we're going to round off with our DTV Throwback, Sons of Liberty. So without further ado, let's crack on. So our first review is Two Heads Creek. Shortly after their mother dies, siblings Norman and Annabelle discover that they aren't in fact descended from a family of Polish butchers like they thought, but that their erstwhile unknown birth mother was from a small Australian town called Two Heads Creek. Deciding they have nothing to lose, they sell their family shop and head out to find their real family, only to find something very sinister instead. So Two Heads Creek is currently doing the rounds of the Fright Fest Film Festival. It's being shown there this week, I believe. So I thoroughly enjoyed this one, guys. It has a wicked sense of humour, nice bit of blood and guts to it, and a very sort of insidious subtext going on, all about immigration and sort of racial tolerance or intolerance in this case. Steve, over to you for your thoughts.
Yeah, enjoyable. Like I said, a lot of the when we do these reviews, I don't normally look up or anything. You send me the links and I'll just watch it blind. So it's quite a pleasant surprise, this one, to be fair. Didn't really know I kind of thought it might be something along these lines for horror with the title. But yeah, it's funny. It's quite gory at the end, and very, very strange, very quirky, but really enjoyable. I thought the performances were really good, especially the twins.
Yeah, yes, definitely. Rich, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I liked it a lot as well. It's got that sort of very exaggerated characterization and sort of broad humour. I thought as the plot was moving on, I felt very much like we're in sort of League of Gentlemen territory.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
But it starts out, because I wasn't sure if there was an Australian angle, because I didn't really know anything going in, and then it starts out on a council estate kind of area or not, that kind of sort of thing.
Basically,
in England, and like these go home kind of races,
Brexit, all that sort of
stuff
bullshit,
going. Yeah, the whole Brexit kind of thing, and telling trying to get the Polish butchers to go home, even though they've probably been there for much longer than those families probably lived there.
And what's funny about that as well, I think he does sort of say, if somebody goes past going Polish scum or something like that, goes, you buy your stuff from us, you're our customer. It's just really bizarre. God.
Yes, the Kolowski and Sons butchers, they've been there for ages. The mother has passed away. It's interesting that we don't actually ever meet the mother. That we're just thrust into this place where this rundown butchers, this bloke who's obviously running the place, but clearly doesn't have much of a clue what he's doing, even though he's obviously been raised there. He doesn't really fit, which I guess turns out to is kind of by design. That's the whole point. He never seems quite right there. His sister comes back, who's a very upper self young lady, who's an aspiring actress, and there's a running gag with her being the face of the face of the still softener thing. So there's that kind of, it's got that crude sort of humor, but they don't over egg it too much. I think it pitches just about the right tone for me. When the story migrates to Australia, you start to think of all the Peter Jackson-y kind of stuff in New Zealand, and it's got that kind of sensibility from that sort of neck of the woods, and I think that all works really well. some of the jokes are just completely over the top, like the throwing the 4X cans and catching them, and there's just some great jokes, like they're on their bus trip and they go, now enjoy your 10-hour bus trip or whatever, and the woman leading the tour, or who ends up being a major character in the town, called Apple, she's going on about, if it wasn't work, because they're taking these immigrants to the town to explore the town, and if it wasn't for immigrants, this country would be nothing. There's nothing without immigrants or whatever. And then the
bus driver is
the bus driver who's an Aborigine, as a little sideways glance at her,
It's funny you should mention, the League of Gentlemen, because I think that does sort of hit it on the head quite nicely. You have this sort of town full of very sort of grotesque sort of personalities, and yet there's this sort of veneer of normalcy on top of it. Sort of town hall meetings and all this sort of stuff going on, and and there's this sort of political backstabbing. There's a power struggle going on in this tiny village, which has probably got about sort of a dozen houses to it. But the family which has been ruling the place for so long has now been usurped by these up and comers, and using Norman Allabille's arrival as a sort of catalyst. The costumes as well are just these very bizarre sort of hand-me-downs from the 70s. It looks like nobody's been inside a shop for at least 20 years. It's really, really strange.
There's some really funky tank tops going on in that village.
Exactly,
thanks. What I was going to say. The other thing is they've got the nice little character interplays between them, and they often are, unless I imagined it, they often seem to change what they say. Like 1 minute they're calling someone brother, or next minute they might say dad, or mum or sister or whatever.
It's like they've forgotten.
because the whole because there's this undercurrent of sort of incest, because the town is just self-perpetuating. There's nobody else coming in apart from people who meet a sticky end, as it were, without sort of giving too much away. I mean, with the story, what I liked about it was, one of the things I liked was the story feels unpredictable, even though it's quite predictable.
Yeah.
I had a feeling of what was going to happen and where we're going to go, because you got this whole, going back to stuff like Wicker Man or whatever. There's this outsider coming into this new place, lots of creepy people. It's not going to end well, kind of thing. But I still wasn't quite sure at various junctures what was going to happen, and how the horror elements were really going to come to the fore, and it was the kind of sort of slapstick horror that I thought worked really well.
There's a level of insidiousness to this that kind of it kept me awake at night, I must admit. There's a bit where the sister goes back on the coach because she's had enough and said, right, I'm leaving. And she goes, and the bus driver, who's the same one who delivered them to the town in the first place, he sort of lays it all out for her, exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Sort of the level it's actually been pitched at. And it's a very sort of out there concept. Of course that could never happen. Could it? It's just so bizarre and so horrific. It's sort of like bigger than the town itself. It really hit me. This sort of concept that they've come up with.
I like the fact that it's one of those films where the villains, although they're doing these terrible things, they're played to such an exaggerated degree that you can go with it. I mean, there's one scene where they're hunting someone down, quite a brief scene where they're hunting someone down, which sort of edges into really the real darkness of what's happening, but they try and sidestep that, and to just stay with the they don't want you to connect too much with the victims. They want you to be more connected to the villains. Sure. In a sort of a that's kind of a horror movie staple, really. You know, if you look at, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street and all that sort of stuff, the bad guys are kind of the more interesting, more colourful characters, and they don't want you to form too much of an attachment to the people who will ultimately be the victims. I thought it worked really well, and there's a nice little twist payoff at the end, which again they keep developing the racist undertones of the get out, foreigners get out, you know, kind of thing, and sort of twisting that on its head, but playing it for laughs. And I thought, you know, it's a very difficult subject, you know, trying to deal with, you know, racism and stuff in any country, and I think they struck just the right tone for the kind of movie they were trying to make. So, you know, top marks for them for that.
Yeah, totally agree. One last thing, the musical number. Just throwing that out there. How did that come across to you guys?
Yeah, I loved it. I thought that was a really good sort of centerpiece. And they reprise it at the. I'm not sure if that's an old song. I like the music in the film generally. I mean, it starts out with this song by this singer Normie Rowe, who I had to write down and sort of look up. You know, is that something they made up, or is he a real singer? Yes, he's a real Australian singer. I believe he's still around, not performing or anything, I think, but I don't think he's passed away yet. So how he feels about his songs being associated with this kind of film, I'm not sure. But that was quite. I like that music. The opening of the movie with the music that opens the film and the sort of stylish animated opening credits and that, I thought were really great. I mean, they don't last very long. It's quite a quick thing, but it's a great little intro. And that musical sequence where it all just goes completely mental. I thought worked really nicely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, guys. Sorry, Steve, off you go.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, it was that to me. That was the turning point. You know, where everything kicks into into high gear, and it really did work well. I mean, she's Apple, is she called? If I remember rightly.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. She's probably the best character in the whole film, I'd have thought.
I agree.
Yeah, she's evil, but you do like her. You do like her, and then she's.
Did you see the old man who was playing the keyboard behind her? With the wig on?
Yeah.
It was great. I mean, I think there were two old men who were sort of shouting and swearing and doing the Father Teddy kind of. Kind of thing. That was brilliant. I loved all that stuff.
Very amusing indeed. Okay,
there
guys.
was the Australian interpretation, the Australian language lesson scene was funny as well, where he was saying stuff, and then there was the one of the students in the classroom translating for the guy about what he was actually saying.
Scores on the doors.
I'm going to go an 8.
Yeah, I'll have to join you on an 8. And Steve?
Yeah, I'll join you on an 8.
Yeah, this is very recommended by us. Do check it out when it gets released, I believe, next month in September, Rich, if I'm right.
It should be out, but it's either out by the time you're listening to this or very soon after.
Yeah, absolutely. Check it out. Our next review is Bulletproof. Nick Holland is a rookie cop who's been partnered up with the grizzled and wise Sergeant Ray Mandel. We follow their late night shift, which takes in crazy vice cops on the edge and 2 cop-killing bank robbers on the loose. Okay, so this is also known as Crown Vic in the States. Obviously, no one in the UK is going to know what the fuck Crown Vic is, but it's actually the make of police cars that most of them use out there. Starring Thomas Jane, almost unrecognizable. It took me a while to realise I was actually watching Thomas Jane in this. I suppose some people might call this like Training Day light. But I think it's actually probably better than Training Day myself. I thoroughly enjoy this. It starts off with a great opening sequence with this bank robbery and escape and everything before we get into spend a lot of time in the cabin of this police car with these two officers. Rich, over to you.
Yeah, I echo your sentiment. The opening is amazing. I wasn't sure at first whether it was going to be, because of it being called Crown Vic originally, whether the film was going to take place entirely in the car, like a wheelman kind of thing.
Yeah.
Majority, wheelman majority in the car. But because that whole opening sequence, which also reminded me a bit of Universal Soldier Regeneration's sort of opening action sequence. It's got it's not a huge sequence, but the camera is moving from the front of the car to the back of the car as some robbers are doing their getaway, basically.
Yeah.
And it's very economical, but it's really intense. And then all of a sudden it cuts away, and we don't actually revisit that element until quite a while. We go back to the car and the police station, the garage, and I was thinking, they're just going to stay with the car, but no. The film is structured quite cleverly around the car, but we'll often, we do leave the vicinity of the car on quite a few occasions, but there's quite creative ways around that. I didn't like Training Day, but I can certainly see the comparisons. But this whole kind of ride along movie, of subgenre of cop movies, I think have been done quite a lot. We've seen this quite a lot. But I think this is definitely one of the best I've seen. I loved it. I loved this. I thought it was great.
Steve?
Yep, I agree completely. I thought it was absolutely great.
Again, same as you, didn't really recognise Thomas Jane at first. It took me a good couple of scenes to realise it was him. I just thought he was phenomenal in this. His performance was so good. He is that character. He's not.
It's like a second skin for him. The way he portrays it. You look at something like, say, Hunter's Moon the other week.
Yeah.
And he's just so much better in this. I think
he's absolutely phenomenal. Having said that, I think everyone's really good in this. Like I say, it starts off with really, really intense robbery. And then, Mello's like, it's kind of cliche, old cop training, new cop, first day on the job, blah, blah, blah. But it goes to some really dark places, especially the other two. Is it the homicide cops?
Yeah, I think they're sort of vice cops, aren't they?
Yeah, vice cops.
That's it, yeah. So, and also the other kind of subplot involving the junkie and the child as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that was freaky.
Yeah, that.
Because I think was it his child? Sort of.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's
it was his partner's.
That's right. It was his partner. Was his partner. Yeah, he died, and then she became a junkie, sort of thing.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what I mean. It could be. Some people may say it's a bit exaggerated. It's his first night, and all this goes down, and armed robbery, and finding junkies and all this lot. But no, I thought it was really, really good. I really enjoyed this, actually.
And we have to mention Jack Van Zandt, who's one of the most sort of scene-stealing kind of characters in a film I've seen for quite a while, played by Josh Hopkins. He's just like this really intense, roided up,
Oh, he's crazy, yeah.
He's supposed to be one of the good guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's like some really, and what I like is there's a lot of scenes that are sort of they use him as misdirection. So you're focusing on his character and what a risk he potentially is, and that takes your attention off of Thomas Jane's character. And so when things go sideways, it's not at all in the way you expect.
Yeah.
You kind of think it's more going to be. Well, I don't want to spoil anything that happens in the movie, but it's kind of, there's a lot more going on under the surface with Thomas Jane's character than he initially lets on. So and that sort of comes towards sort of the later part of the film. I don't know if you call this kind of a shaggy dog story or something, because there's not much of a plot. I say
because they're not. The thing is that they're not actively searching for the bank robbers, are they? I mean, they are just on patrol, and you know, the bank robber thing is just one of many things on their radar.
Yeah,
you know, it's there in the background. You know, I think we sort of follow a few details. You know, with them swapping cars and things like that. So we know that's still going on, and it's a potential threat. But
they're heading on a collision course, aren't they?
Exactly,
there's an indication that we know that at some point they're going to meet, and that's going to be and that felt like that's going to be the main, you know, climax of the film. But that's again, it's all sort of misdirection, really. It does nothing really pans out in the kind of way you're expecting it going to.
No, absolutely.
Although people may be prepared for that now that I've said it, but I thought, you know, it's very absorbing, great character stuff. I mean, between Thomas Jane and the other guy, Luke Kleintank, as Nick Holland, who's the new guy. You know, all the cliches are there. You know, he's you know, they're talking about all the, you know, it's the old grizzled, like Steve was saying, the old grizzled sort of veteran character. He's really jaded, and then you got the new sort of idealist. And is he going to be an idealist by the end of the movie? Probably not. But there was, apart from Training Day, I don't know if End of Watch was sort of a similar kind of thing, because I never saw that. But there was a great Cuba Gooding Jr. one called Dirty, which I don't know if you ever saw. But that's a really good one from the 2000s.
The other one that kind of reminded me a little bit, only a tiny bit, was Colours.
Oh yeah, the old Sean Penn.
Yeah, Sean Penn and Robert Duvall.
Yeah, which I've never seen. I should see that at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Dennis Hopper.
No, Robert Duvall and Sean Penn were the two cops in that one.
No, didn't Dennis Hopper direct it?
Oh, I think he might.
You know what?
Done.
I think he did actually.
Yeah. Cool. Right then, guys. Scores on the doors for Bulletproof. I'm gonna give this another 8.
I'm gonna go up to a 9. I'm going to say 9 out of 10. I also want to mention, I thought the music was really good in it as well. It's got kind of a synthy kind of sound, which I really like.
Yeah. Do you happen to know whether or not this is coming out on Blu-ray, or is it just going on DVD?
This is coming out on DVD only, as far as I'm aware.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it's a very visually striking. That's another thing. The cinematography is amazing. The film just looks great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All shot at night. It looks great. You know, I just love the sort of details of the actual car as well. You know, the things he does to get ready to go out on patrol and things. It's just all these little sort of micro details. Just makes it feel like a real experience. It's really cool.
Sorry, I kind of cut Steve off there with his score.
Steve, what was your score, mate?
I'm definitely giving it an 8 as well.
Okay, 2 8s and a 9 for Bulletproof. Our next review is 9/11. A disparate group of individuals find themselves trapped in an elevator in the World Trade Center on the day of the terrorist attack. Whilst the world watches as the towers burn, these strangers must work together for any chance of survival. Okay, so my question to you guys is, why? Why does this film exist?
Well, I think it wants to be United 93, doesn't it?
I guess.
But is it as good as United 93? Steve, what do you think?
Just no, without a doubt. It's probably the most exploitative thing I've seen in a long time. It kind of reminded me of Devil without. Was it Devil?
Yeah.
M. Night
Shyamalan film.
Shyamalan.
Yeah, without the horror, without the acting, without the scripts, it was just terrible. I'm sorry, but there's no excuse for it.
So this film apparently is based on a play,
Yeah, I learned that quite late in the day from watching
You can tell.
it.
Yeah,
But when I was
actually hung
watching
around
it, I
for
was
the
thinking.
credits. I actually hung around for some of the credits on this one.
When I was watching, it, I was
Oh,
thinking, this is really like a play.
So that's why we have the sort of one location and everything, I guess. And I can only imagine it was an off Broadway play. I can't see, but why?
Yeah. No, I don't.
And the cast, okay, Charlie Sheen has burnt a lot of bridges, but he's still watchable. Even in this, he's watchable. I would watch him. If somebody put Charlie Sheen in a film, I would watch it. No questions asked. I would still feel he's a watchable actor. And then
he's not a strong enough dramatic lead, though, is he? That's the problem.
And but then you got sort of Gina Gerson and
Louise
Guzman, and
he's great. I like him. He's playing basically the same character he always plays.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then you got Whoopi Goldberg as well on the outside, still trying to help. It was a bizarre experience.
What was going on with Whoopi Goldberg's there, for starters? And that shot at the beginning where she's like, is she walking into work or something?
Yeah.
And it's just obviously green screened.
Yeah. Well, that's even more so towards the end, isn't it? When Gina Gershon's around with all the smoke and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
It was a very, very cheap film. You can't get around the fact. But which is
funny because the cast actually, that's quite a good cast.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like it's weird because it's like an asylum movie, but they've managed to get Charlie Sheen and Whoopi Goldberg in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've managed to get star actors of that slightly higher caliber, but you can't break out of it feeling like a cheap exploitative film. It's very melancholic in its opening and set up, and trying to be quite at the start it seems to be quite restrained, but then as it moves on they think, we're gonna have to rely on some of the footage of the planes in the tower for a bit of
I was a bit
worried when the
worried.
film comes to life, really.
I was a bit worried that it was going to turn out that this was based on a true story.
No.
But luckily it wasn't. It was based on a play. But even so, I don't, there's not many people clamoring to make a film about 9/11. We've had United 93, World Trade Center. Then there's that thing with Robert Pattinson.
Remember Me?
Yeah.
Remember Me.
Yeah.
Which is no connection to it at all, apart from that last shot at the end.
Apart from the last scene, yeah. But there's been no attempt since to even go near it with a barge pole.
No.
But here comes this thing, which is.
Well, like you said, we must say though, it was made 3 years ago originally, and it's finally coming out over here. But
it's probably one of those films which gets sold as a package. It's like, you're taking these two films. Well, you have this one as well.
Yeah.
You got to distribute this one as well if you're going to take those two. I don't know. No, I've got nothing really positive to say about it, unfortunately, apart from the fact that I enjoyed the cast that's in it. The cast is watchable, but it's just going through the motions, going through it's script writing by numbers. The whole thing with Charlie Sheen and his wife are on the cusp of a divorce. And it's getting a bit bitter, but once they're in the thing and somebody starts poking Charlie Sheen's, because he's a rich guy, and then she stands up for him going, you can't talk to him like that. He left his home with $90 in his pocket and he made himself the self-made man that he was today, sort of thing,
And not only that,
I'm not even sure if he did, because I got the impression she was the one with all the money and he just married her. So,
it's standard kind of disaster movie on a in a micro location. Alfred Hitchcock made the film Lifeboat. I think was one of the first ones to do this basic concept. And this is working with trying to do a lifeboat kind of story against the grand drama of one of the defining, things that happen
the 21st
so far of the 21st century. And it can't do it. It can't do service to the people and the people who were lost in the disaster and I think, and also there's not enough real focus on what is actually happening to satisfy in any meaningful way of trying to understand more about it. It doesn't give you anything. The film, like United 93 puts you in the plane with those people who will never be able to give their testimonies or anything to be able to, and so that is based on a true event. So really, out of the two stories, 9/11 is playing on much safer ground because there's no although there were almost certainly people in that situation. The creation is entirely fictitious in that assemblage, whereas United 93 was literally having to be very careful to be very respectful to the memories of the people who died on board that plane. And the difference is Paul Haggis was it Paul Haggis who did it? Paul Greengrass. Paul Greengrass. Yeah, Paul Greengrass is a master of that kind of thing, and Martin Guigi is the director of National Lampoon's Cattle Call.
Okay. Yes. So he's definitely the guy you want to call to do a thoughtful drama about 9/11.
It's a real shame. I wanted to like it because I know I'd heard a lot of bad things about it, and I wanted to give it a fair shot and say, okay, maybe this isn't as bad as people have been saying. People can be unnecessarily cruel sometimes.
Well, we've gone against the grain on other films like Gotti and Speed Kills and The Fanatic, the Travolta ones that we did recently. Unfortunately, this isn't in that sort of league of misunderstood genius. Shall we say?
I would say I liked the lift, the falling lift drama stuff. But that's something we've seen a lot. That's kind of standard. We've seen Speed, we've seen the opening of Resident Evil. It's all been done many, many times. Doesn't bring anything really new to it. It's fine. I didn't like the floating in 0G.
That was one special effect. That was
that didn't work. But
it was one again. My son walked in and went, "What are you watching?" I said, 9/11. He went, "The Charlie Sheen one." He went, "Yeah." He went, "Oh fuck!" He just walked off.
Not sitting down with you for that one. No, you're on your
own.
No,
not a chance.
Oh dear. Okay, we have to do it. Scores on the doors for 9/11. Steve.
3.
3.
Yeah.
Rich.
Well, it's 9/11, so I've got to give it a 3.
Yeah, I think this is one of the lowest scoring films we've ever covered. So yeah, I'm going to have to give it a 3. It's there's technical aspects here. It's got a likable cast, but the script is fucking rubbish. And it just doesn't work overall. So yeah, 3 for people turning up and being filmed. Our short shot this week is Snake Eyes. So this is a fan film based on the character from G.I. Joe. The enigmatic Snake Eyes leaves a heartfelt message for his girlfriend when he goes off for one final mission. Okay, so in this one we have the events of this final mission, which happens in a forest. The G.I. Joes have been disbanded again, and a sort of new paramilitary force is being sort of like taken over, and they offer him a job and he refuses, so they go out to try and kill him. And he's sort of, at the same time, he's left a message for his wife to go out and find something. I did not like this personally. I think it was reasonably well made. The technical aspects are fine, but I think it is a complete mishandling of the character Snake Eyes. I mean, they get the look of him totally right, but I just totally disagree with the story they've set him up with. I mean, just totally. So, Rich, over to you.
Yeah, I don't really know the character of Snake Eyes very much, apart from the fact that I did see the.
For the record, I've only seen the two GI Joe films.
Yes.
That's where I get my knowledge of him. So yeah,
okay. But you obviously remember him much better than I do, but I didn't really remember him. I know there's another film coming up with Andrew Koji and I can't remember what the other guy is, but there's a feature film coming up, so that was quite interesting. The director Rene Perez, who's made this, decided to make a film based on that character. So clearly it's not a pitch, because you can't pitch for something that's actually already being made. So he's just decided that he wants to make a Snake Eyes story, which is fine. Do you remember, Mike, when we looked at the trailer Cabal? Cabal.
Yeah, the one about the guy who's hired to kill a serial killer in the woods.
Yeah, so I think that they've shot this at the same time, or at least using some of the same forest. So maybe the same costume but adapted, because that immediately sprung to mind as what it seemed like I was watching that footage again. It's you can sort of see Rene Perez's style in it. I think that's quite good. He made things like Death Kiss and lots of other stuff. Actually, he's very, he's not a very praised filmmaker, but he is a very prolific filmmaker.
Yeah,
doing films with like The Punished and The Dragon Unleashed, Playing with Dolls. There's like 3 of those. He's sort of been the guy who's responsible for the rise of Robert Bronzy.
Yeah. The guy looks like Charles Bronson. Yeah,
actually got a new film out called The Insurrection, which is. Stars Michael Paré, which is apparently quite controversial. Although I'm not sure why, but it's all sort of having a go at the Hollywood system or something. That's on Amazon to rent and stuff anyway. And there's a little promotion of that at the start of this film. Says this is a fan film from the director of The Insurrection. So anyway, he's a director I'm curious about, but there is something very Uwe Boll about him.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was interesting how they've gone for basically a dialogue-free film, which fits the character because the character doesn't talk. There's like these little comic booky kind of inserts, but it's all sort of flashed between the fight scenes. So it's a fight short basically, or action scene that's sort of broken up with little bits. But I thought for what it was, it runs for about 15 minutes. I quite enjoyed it, really.
Steve, what about you?
No, I'm with you, Mike. I didn't get this at all. For one, when it started out, it's got like Rich was just saying, like the comic book thingy. You know, the style, the little squares, where she's supposedly reading the letter, and then it shows the letter written. So it's showing you the same thing twice, which really got on my nerves. That really
I don't know, and they didn't match, did they? It was really weird.
No, it was just like the weirdest choice I think they've ever made. The fight scenes weren't too bad. It was a little bit disjointed and slow. I mean, you've got like, someone getting a knife in the shoulder and the next minute someone's head's getting blown off. There's blood and guts and gore everywhere. And then you're transitioning into her sat in the bath, reading his letter, finding his money. Right. Another thing as well. When she's in the bath and she gets out and you've got a big black bar come up across the breast, is that for YouTube?
I expect so. Yeah.
Right, because I'm just like, because that threw me as well. It's like, well, why bother putting that in there if you're just going to censor it? You can show someone's head blowing up.
Well, yeah,
Can't show a pair of boobs.
that's the American rating system, isn't it? Basically.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah. But yeah, it was just like you're saying. Like, I don't know much about Snake Eyes as a character, but I personally can't see him being so lovey-dovey. And fair enough, leaving the money, but then leaving a load of rose bushes and stuff like that. It was just like, no.
He's very romantic on Snake Eyes.
It's the fact that he went out there with his Ziploc bag full of these seeds to plant, and it's like, and he obviously he knew where he was because he's telling his wife, going, oh, remember that place where we met, or we went on our for our first date or something. It's like
where we met.
Yeah,
we met.
So that's a perfect place for us for me to get ambushed by these guys, or to to stand my ground or something. It's like just absolutely crazy. I'm sort of I was kind of imagining
in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, well, there's that. But he's saying sort of like, oh, I've got, there's one more surprise for you. Yeah, he's dead, rotted corpse on the top of this hillside, bullet ridden, with all these roses growing around him. Very, very romantic. Exactly what she wants to remember him by. Yes, so it's attempting to sort of. This lovey-dovey side is just at odds with the character that as far as we know. We do have a certain amount of ignorance. I mean, I've never seen the cartoon, so he may have been a family man for all I know. Might have been some cherub kids calling him daddy. Daddy Snake Eyes.
I did watch it when I was a kid. I mean, don't get me wrong, like 30 years ago, and I don't remember any of that at all. It was just quiet in the corner, kicked after I needed to.
Yeah, I thought this guy was supposed to be like the stealthy ninja one, and he's having this sort of big firefight in the middle of the forest. And there's other bits like, he can't shoot for toffee when somebody's like stood in front of him. He can't hit the chest, can't hit the head, but when somebody's hidden behind a tree and there's just the tip of their kneecap sort of showing behind it, I can hit that, no problem. I enjoyed the blood squibs. I enjoyed the the bit of sort of gore to the kill scenes and stuff, but there was no real structure to it, except all the exposition that he's dumping on his girlfriend. Nobody talks in the film, as Richard points out. There's no. I can't even remember if there was a chief bad guy. The sort of main henchman. But this was. It's a weird story to tell. If you want to develop something, you think, I'm going to make a fan film about, one of these characters, then maybe try to be true to the character. In our previous episode, we covered Gambit, somebody who actually understood the character.
Yeah.
But there you go. So anyway, Rich enjoyed this one. Me and Steve didn't. But we'll put the link anyway in the footnotes so you can check it out. Let us know what you think about Snake Eyes. Our DTV Throwback this week is Sons of Liberty, also known as CTU, Sons of Liberty.
Black Ops Assault.
And Black Ops Assault as well. So, a number of titles knocking around. Sons of Liberty, though. A secret worldwide organization lends covert assistance to a terrorist cell planning to build and deploy a salted bomb on US soil. A small anti-terrorist think tank, given the call sign Sons of Liberty, finds itself spearheading the investigation. However, the unit is newly formed, and although each is talented in their field, there is a significant tension. Are they up to the task? Well, are they? I'm going to go straight over to Rich.
I'd actually like to pass this over to Steve first, if you don't mind.
Steve, what did you make of Sons of Liberty?
Not that impressed, to be fair. I thought it was very, very messy. The script was all over the place. I didn't know what was going on half the time. Some of the performances were terrible. And it was a bit of a mess. I mean, some of it was quite enjoyable, but not for me. Not for me. I think, is she called Rourke, the Irish?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, probably the worst Irish accent since they put Jerry Adams on the news at 10. She was terrible. It just seemed very, like half the script hadn't been filmed. You know, you're jumping from one point to this point to this point, and it just didn't mesh. I don't know what, it just annoyed me. And especially like where they stood in the, say like the control room. And you know you've got these yellow barriers or yellow bits of glass in the middle of it.
Yep.
And the cameras, the guy
yeah, I know the saying you mean.
He was epileptic, and it just keeps going round and round, all the time going round him. And 1 minute it's nice, and then the next minute you got a big yellow thing coming across the screen. And there's also another bit where someone gets out of the car and it's shot from about 50 foot away, but all you can see is the tail pipe of another car and their feet underneath it, and then they walk out, and just little things like that, it really annoyed me. Anyway, Rich.
Yeah, well, I echo your sentiments, really. I was really looking forward to this. It stars Tamer Hassan, so I thought, oh, this is really interesting, and I like him. Be interesting sort of lead role for him in this kind of action thriller. And then it was like, oh, actually, it's one of those cases where somebody gets top credit, but they're actually not in it very much. And he's not playing a heroic character. He's playing a sort of a stereotypical Middle Eastern terrorist character, which I thought was a bit disappointing, because I was hoping that he was going to be like the leader of the group or something. But yeah, I just thought the whole thing was like a real mess of, lots of ideas that are really underdeveloped and not very well explored, and just pulling in a lot of different directions. Now, I've watched a lot of Steven Seagal movies, and this is probably the first film I've seen in a while that is like so many of those Steven Seagal movies, in that they have so many, they're like that team kind of element, and they're on a mission, but there's all these other bits in there, and it doesn't really coalesce, and it's all just sort of really confusing. We start out with, go on.
What was the stuff with the murdered girls turning up? That led to nowhere.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's one of the points. I mean, also, that's they kind of develop that later, and they explain how that ties in. But seriously, isn't that happening? Isn't what he's doing there completely putting at risk what they're trying to achieve in their ideology and stuff? Anyway, so we start off with this pretty cool animated, history, exposition kind of thing, which I really liked. Although it was a bit confusing because they overlaid the credits on it as well, so you weren't quite sure where to look, and it played this terrible rock music stuff. Anyway, I like that because it reminded me of the opening of The Kingdom with Jamie Foxx, where it just sort of gives you a little bit of a history lesson kind of thing. I thought that set up things nicely. And then we're introduced, we're in London, and there's this secret organization, and this bloke in a cloak is introduced, and there's kind of supernatural elements seem to be at play. And then that's kind of coasting along. The guy's basically dressed like Arrow, and he's wandering through. He's involved with Tamer Hassan's group basically, but separate from them. It's not quite clear, but he's representing an organization which kind of, to me, seemed like maybe they're like the League of Shadows or something from the Batman universe, that kind of setup. But again, that doesn't really go anywhere. It's almost like they bring this big thing in and then don't really do anything with it. And then you've got the agents on the mission, and it's sort of drifting over into sort of Agent of Shield kind of territory in places, but it's so unsettling, and it ends, and it's like, again, like Steven Seagal's kind of movies, and like his TV show True Justice. There's all this stuff going on, and none of it really matches together, and then the ending is completely unsatisfactory. There's no resolution. It's just sort of there's a climax, and then the weirdest sort of epilogue, which seems like it's going to lead on to another scene, but then goes, no, actually, no, that's the end. You're like, what? So Mike, you sang this film's praises in 2014.
Yep.
And you gave it 8 out of 10.
So this is quite
your assessment.
Well, let's sort of go back a bit. So this is quite amusing. Richard was sort of looking up the film on IMDb, and he found my old review, or at least a link to it, from 2014. And I'd forgotten that I'd actually done this. That I'd written a review.
You'd forgotten you'd seen it, hadn't you?
I'd seen it, yeah. But which is kind of weird. But yes, I did sing its praises, but I thought I gave it a reasonable amount of sort of constructive criticism as well. I did actually interview the director, Drew Hall, and I did ask him a few questions about the film. This was meant to have been a TV series. This was like meant to have been a pilot originally, and obviously some of the loose ends would have been picked up elsewhere. There's another element in the middle of the film where one of the actresses apparently became really ill, and her scenes were cut. And then I think there's a scene where one of the girls gets abducted. That was all back to front. You know, should have been a different actress from the film. Sort of things like that going on. So yeah, there are elements which should have been developed further in the series as a whole.
Well, it definitely does feel like a condensed TV series. There's so much happening from beginning to end that it's like the ending of the film is like it's like the end of season cliffhanger almost. Although I'd say that epilogue thing's just ridiculous, but the sort of climax of the film is. The whole experience has felt like a TV series, but it's like they've just shredded it down to like 90 minutes, and it's just completely incomprehensible. Basically.
Yeah, I think they've sort of put together what they could. I think it starts great. I think it ends great, more or less. The middle bit is a bit muddled. I like some of the cast.
There is there is some nice action. I like the sliding slow-mo.
Yeah. Oh, that sliding slow-mo shot is amazing. It really is.
So you got not only got what's it? How do you pronounce his name? Tamer Hassan. Who I liked in things like The Last Seven. Quite enjoyed that one. But also you got Mark Sheppard as their boss. If you watched any sort of TV show from the sort of 2000s. He was guest starring in it. He had a long run in Leverage, as well as other bits and pieces, always turning up in TV.
He did the weird superhero movie Faust, I believe. Faust, Love of the Damned.
All right. No, cool. But yeah, I think this is basically a low budget movie made to look like it's got a lot of sheen to it. I think it's well shot. I think it has a nice polish to it. It's just that, as you said, it doesn't quite add up to this to anything comprehensible at times, and it does end on this sort of like, as you say, they're setting up the next mission, but what is it? We don't know. It's just cuts basically.
Well, here's the thing. You were saying about I think you mentioned it in the review as well, like the credits, that sort of history thing that I was saying, established as well. I thought that was tied to the guys in London and the guy with the hood. I didn't put together. I didn't put that was the Sons of Liberty thing. I thought it was a different thing. It was like the different.
Well, this is it as well. We're here in 2020. The connotations of it having a name like Sons of Liberty, it really does sound like some conspiracy-loving MAGA sort of right-wing conspiracy group now, doesn't it? You know, so you would sort of assume, aha, so that obviously refers to this weird sinister cabal, which is sort of meeting in places in London, when, you know, it was envisaged as this sort of freedom fighting special ops unit.
Yeah, and talking about that unit, you know, the lead actor he was just so bland. Unfortunately, he was just not.
No, I quite liked him.
He was not strong. He was like so vanilla. Unfortunately, I just go. And why was he walking around with a crutch all the time?
Well,
And then he's running off.
This again, this is probably one of those things, you know, that happened during the production. You know, who knows? At
least we get a couple of scenes with Keith David.
I was about to mention Keith David. Yes. So again, you know, you got three actors there who do sort of like, you know, they elevate the sort of quality of what you're watching just by their presence, really. I still stand by this for the most part. I think it's got a great start, great ending. This, you know, the shootout and everything. Stupid thing with the IT guy. That is just absolutely ridiculous.
Oh God!
Saw that coming a mile off.
Special agent, and it's like that moment at the end. I was like, you idiot! It's like the most idiotic moment.
It is, yeah. It is basically suicide, isn't it? Yeah. How did a guy commit suicide in a gun battle?
Mike, how did you feel about the terminology, or Steve as well? How did you feel about the terminology? Because they keep throwing out these terms and acronyms and stuff every 5 seconds.
That show for me.
That kind of pissed me off anyway.
It was like
we'll swap the U258 for the you know, the non-lethal U253. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, it was almost like they're like an in joke or something. Like they're trying to keep you at a distance by, you know, using all these. So it's like, well, they're trying to do two things. They're trying to say, well, the main thing I think they're trying to do is show, oh, look how credible we are. Yeah. We're trying to show these characters like they would really talk, you know, with these, you know, professional terms and stuff. But that just really, I felt, was quite alienating. And I don't know if they were aiming for that, but it was just like, it was just annoying. I don't really, you know, you could establish what some of those things mean and then return to them every now and again. But this seemed to do it all the time. Like every second thing they said was like the OD of the CB of the QPST or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me.
Have you ever watched Line of Duty?
I haven't actually.
Yeah. Well, the started to, yeah.
Yeah. Right. It gets a bit like that in like the later seasons, yeah. But the thing is, you've grown with it. You know actually what they're on about.
Right.
You know, with this, it's just we'll just spout it all out, and you're like, what?
Just chuck you straight.
You've got no idea what they're talking. Yeah. Yeah.
So in terms of its release over here, I thought it was quite interesting because when you were reviewing it,
yeah,
the title was CT. The title had been changed to CTU Special Ops.
Yeah. But
then it was the release. It seemed was held for 2 or 3 months, and they changed the title to Black Ops Assault.
That's right. Yeah.
Which I thought was quite curious. So, so I think both of those probably. Either of those titles that they changed to probably make commercial sense.
Yeah, from a UK point of view, from a UK marketing point of view, that would be a better title than Sons of Liberty. Especially because there was I think there was a US mini-series that came out a couple of years afterwards as well, which is like set during the War of Independence.
Yeah, with Ben Barnes on the History Channel, I think.
Yeah.
So so that was put out by Point Blank. It's recently resurfaced. I'm not sure at what point it turned up on Prime Video. And yeah, I'm glad I've finally seen it.
Yeah.
It was a letdown on several levels, but I am glad I've seen it.
Have you seen Convergence?
No, that's one of the films he made later, isn't it? It's like 2017, I think.
Same director, yeah. And it stars Ethan Embry.
Yes.
And the guy from the Lethal Weapon series, Clayne Clawford.
Oh yeah.
And it's yeah, I really enjoyed that. It's a bit more, it's a bit more coherent than this, that's for sure. But if it turns up, if you find it, it'll be another good one to check out in the throwback section.
It's interesting that since Convergence, he seems to only be making short films.
He runs he runs a film company called Craft Show, and they mostly do sort of adverts now for sort of various companies. He works out of I want to say Alabama. That's not right. One of those states beginning with A. Not Alabama.
Oh.
Cardinals. Arizona. There we go. Yeah, he works out of Arizona mostly. Right. But so he's got a company called Craft Show, and they do sort of mostly sort of adverts for sort of local businesses and things.
Oh, okay. Have you seen any of his other features, like the ones for example, like films he made prior to Sons of Liberty, like Skyhook or Phoenix Rises, which I think Phoenix Rises came out as Skypocalypse over here.
Right. Interesting.
You seen either of those?
I haven't. No. He was trying to put together he's very interested in steampunk.
Right.
And he was sort of trying to put together a film or a short. I think he got as far as doing a proof of concept sort of short. It was going to have things like airships and things like this, sort of zeppelins or whatever. It was quite interesting.
I'm just having a quick look at Skypocalypse on Amazon, and the first critic review has said loaded with technobabble. So it sounds like he did the same thing on. It sounds like he did the same thing on Sons of Liberty that he had done with his previous movie.
Oh well. Anyway, we don't score the.
Hopefully he's learned his lesson now.
Yeah, we don't score the throwbacks. Make of our review what you will. I still liked it for all its faults. Richard and Steve not so convinced. But if we were scoring it, would you stand by the 8 out of 10? That's what I'm curious about. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. But it would still be. I reckon probably a 6 or a 7. Mm-hmm. If I was to score again, but I'll leave the review as it was. Okay, so that is our show for this week. So thanks for Steve and Rich for joining me.
No problem, sir.
Check out the footnotes, which has links for Snake Eyes and the trailers for the films that we've been discussing this evening. Thank you for listening, and tune in again next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.